Hello and welcome to Everything is Black and White podcast. For those listening on our podcast channel, thank you very much. For those watching on your YouTube, hello. I'm joined by Lancashire Live's Jaquob Crooke, and we're going to preview Newcastle's game against Blackburn tomorrow in the EFL Cup. Jaquob, first off, a few injuries for Blackburn. So can you just tell our listeners and our viewers what those are and how that might affect the team tomorrow night?
Yeah, so squad numbers are pretty tight at the minute. Bradley Johnson is a new absentee. He's picked up an ankle injury from the defeat on Saturday against Bournemouth. Sam Gallagher's been out for pretty much the whole of pre-season, and so he hasn't featured at all yet, and he's been absent. There's a young lad called Jack Vale. He was in and around the first team set up towards the end of last season, but he's out for about 8 weeks with an injury. So they're the three main ones. But all in all, like, squad numbers are pretty tight at the minute. So that's where they're looking to try and make a few additions before the end of the window.
Did I read somewhere that I think Tony Mowbray said he's training with 17 ahead of tomorrow's trip, which isn't ideal, and if you get another couple of injuries, tweaks and that, you're going to be looking at a very depleted squad up at St James's Park tomorrow night.
Yeah, there's a lot of youth team players that's sort of in the fold at the minute. But the under-23s have got a game against Sunderland this afternoon, and so a few of them will be taking part in that. But at the minute, it's quite a young squad. A lot of the players from the academy have sort of come onto the first team scene lately. So it is quite a youthful side, and yeah, he's like I said just before, in terms of getting additions, he's trying to get a bit of experience in, but obviously that won't happen before tomorrow.
Steve Bruce said in his press conference today that he expects to progress. He's going to make quite a few changes, but he still expects to get into the next round. So just how important are Blackburn taking this? Obviously, I imagine doing well in the Championship comes first, but do Blackburn, obviously, do they want to do well? Is this seen as a priority, perhaps?
Yeah, I spoke to Mowbray about it this morning, and he said, obviously, we'd all love a cup run and stuff, but he didn't hide away from the fact that he's sort of already got one eye on Saturday in the league against Wickham. So he'll make one or two changes. Obviously, try and keep things fresh, but he wants to put out a competitive side. He feels like the team can give a good game, and yeah, I'm sure they'll go for it tomorrow night anyway.
So Bournemouth were the opposition on Saturday, 3-2 defeat for Rovers. It seemed like Blackburn were looking to kind of maybe win that game towards the end there, and then obviously a late goal. How was it? I mean, were Blackburn good for the win? Did they deserve the win? Well, did they deserve to win rather before Bournemouth sneaked the winner?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. For a neutral, it was a cracking game. If anybody got the highlights of it, it was a really good encounter. Towards the end, I felt like there was only one team that was going to win it, and it was Blackburn. And then again, the same like familiar tale of defensive lapses sort of came in, and they conceded late on. But for the first half was evenly matched. Again, they went ahead through a pretty good goal, but they fought back on 2 occasions, and I thought a draw would have been a fair result. But towards the end of the game, they were the more dominant side. I think that sort of bodes well for the rest of the season with them, really.
Losing that game so late on, though, will that impact what happens tomorrow night? Perhaps will they feel deflated, or because it's so early in the season, you're still learning your feet, you're still, learning your best side and the way you play. So how do you think that late defeat will impact tomorrow?
I think they've always responded well to adversity. They've always sort of been able to pick themselves up after a tough defeat. And yeah, you can expect a response from them tomorrow night. They'll definitely go for it, and a chance to play against the Premier League side, especially a venue like St James's as well. They'll be relishing the opportunity to play there. So I think they'll give them a good game. Whether it's enough to get the victory or not is a completely different matter.
And one man who will be relishing coming home is Adam Armstrong. A fan favourite, really, amongst some quarters of the support. I think people would have loved to seen him follow in the footsteps of Alan Shearer, Geordie wearing that number 9 shirt. He's done, very well at Blackburn. He scored against Bournemouth, and he was talking about taking the positives into tomorrow's game. Will he start, first of all?
Yeah, I'd expect him to start. I mean, I talked about numbers being pretty light. It's in the attacking department where it's extremely light at the minute, and Mowbray plays like a 4-3-3 at the minute. So, and he's only got Armstrong, Ben Brereton, Joe Rankin Costello, and Tyree Sterling to pick from. So I fully expect him to lead the line tomorrow night. But I was looking at his numbers yesterday, and he scored 16 league goals last season. Only 4 of them sort of came before December, before Bradley Dack got injured, and a lot of responsibility, especially the goal scoring responsibility at Blackburn, was on Bradley Dack. And when he got injured, sort of Adam took it upon himself to lead the line, and he's thrived in it, and obviously scored another 12 in the second half of the season. It's sort of like, well, you've probably seen like he's some of the goals that he scored last season as well. Some of them are ridiculously good from distance. But Mowbray was saying that he sort of needs to add that the clinical, the potent sort of side to him to get into the penalty area and like be anticipating the cross and stuff. And he seems to have added that to his game in recent months, and he proved that on Saturday. And I think that'll be the difference between him being sort of like a 15 goal a season striker to maybe a 20-25 goal a season striker in a championship.
And he'll be coming back to Tyneside with something to prove, I imagine, as well. So that might give Blackburn that little bit of extra edge, perhaps, going into that game.
Yeah, he's always like he's like a bottle of pop. He's always like fizzing about on the pitch in little bursts and stuff. And like against Bournemouth on Saturday, like he was pressing high, he was chasing after a lost ball. There's a few times where he caught out the goalkeeper, Mark Travers. Like he caught him out in possession. So he'll be well up for it. I've got no doubt about that.
So we mentioned there about kind of the lapse of concentration, perhaps in the defence against Bournemouth. Is that a regular occurrence? If I was going to ask you to name a weakness of this Blackburn side that Steve Bruce should look to exploit, perhaps, or maybe he's picked up on the tapes and what have you, what would it be? Would it be that defensive, mistakes?
Yeah, definitely. The defence is sort of an area of concern for Mowbray and his team at the coaching staff at the minute. They're looking to bring in defensive recruits. So, I mean, he's talked about bringing in a man to partner Darragh Lenihan at centre back, and they've failed to do that so far. But they're still obviously keen to bring in a new defender and a left back as well. But yeah, sort of like the system that Mowbray started to play, it like requires the fullbacks to sort of push high up, and it sort of leaves them exposed at the back. And if you can sort of hit them on the counter, that's where they're at their weakest. So it's definitely like sort of down the middle defensively where they look vulnerable.
In terms of the main strength that Newcastle really have to look out for, what would you recommend Steve Bruce maybe does his homework on?
I think it would be to watch out the fullbacks. It's sort of a mix and match actually. Ryan Nyambi on the right, when he pushes on, he looks a constant threat, and when sort of Rovers overload out wide, it can be difficult to handle. And when they get the service right, then obviously when you got the likes of Armstrong in the box, he'll take his chances when they come. So.
And in terms of Newcastle, I mean, what are you most looking forward to seeing? Steve Bruce says he's going to make a lot of changes. So, unfortunately, fortunately maybe for Blackburn, the likes of Alan St. Maximin may be rested, perhaps even Callum Wilson. But what are you most looking forward to seeing when you travel up tomorrow night?
Yeah, it was sort of individual talents I was sort of looking forward to seeing. So the likes of St. Maximin and Almiron and those sort of players, they are very fair. Obviously, going up to St. James's is always a great trip. I actually always love going to that ground, so looking forward to that. But yeah, I'll be interested to see how Ryan Fraser gets on. Obviously, there's been a lot of publicity about him as of late, so see whether he's worth a hype that's come with it. But yeah, no, it's always good to play against Newcastle. Always an interesting tie. And probably shouldn't be saying this, but I'm a Birmingham fan normally, and obviously Steve Bruce I'm a big fan of his, so it'd be good to see him.
Ryan Fraser looks like he probably will start. I think Steve Bruce has pretty much confirmed that in his press conference this morning. Well, just to wrap up then, Jacob, give me your score prediction for Newcastle United versus Blackburn in the EFL Cup.
I'll go. Oh, I'll be sensible. I'll go 2-1 Newcastle. I'll expect probably both teams will score in it. Just purely because our Rovers can attack but also defend as well. So yeah, go for 2-1.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate you joining us on Everything is Black and White podcast, and have a safe trip up to the northeast tomorrow.
Grant, thank you for having me.